So I've finally made it up here now to Ormskirk. We'll have a look at this XF, see what's going on, confirm the customer's concern, get gel test plugged in, and then we'll go from there. Right, we'll get in. Oh, what we got on the dash? Nothing at the moment. Air pressure too low. And let's start it, see what happens. Nothing, just the engine warning lights. Ah, there you go, engine malfunction, yeah? Right, so we'll get gel testing now, see what's going on the old PCI, and we'll go from there. We'll just leave the ignition on. We'll get this passenger door open too. That always helps. Yes, we know. With our VCI plugged in, we'll do the old auto VIN identification. I won't bang on about this all the way through, we'll just get to PCI, I think. We'll go into fault code reading now. And as you can see, we've got a couple of issues here. We've got hardware or software problem on the ECAN, engine protection, and turbocharger actuator internal fault. Well, I can tell you now the top three will be all because of the internal fault in the VTG actuator, so it'll need one of them. So the other two faults we've got here are the speed sensor of the coolant pump, valid data but below normal operating range, and the coolant pump voltage high or short circuit to positive. If I was to hazard a guess, I'd say we're going to end up fitting a coolant pump here. The speed sensor's working fine because it's saying valid data but below normal operating range. It won't be the wiring, it'll be an internal fault in the components. So what I think we're going to do now is we'll change the turbo actuator, substitute it for another one. If this fault was happening when you were going down the road and the light was coming on and going off and coming on and going off, or the vehicle was stopping, I'd say the fault would have been in the engine wiring harness. But seeing as this has happened as soon as you turn the ignition on and then goes off, I'd say it's the turbo actuator, just like on an LF, you see. So we'll swap the turbo actuator this morning and then go from there, I think. So we've got a coolant draining out of this now. We'll just get the reservoir opened up, I think. Let's get this grill open. And we can let some of the pressure out the coolant cap. And now my phone's ringing. Hello. Yeah, I'm good, thanks, mate. Nice and easy now. 1 4-pin plug to undo down here. 2 bolts, 2 coolant pipes. Turbo actuator comes off. So let's get into this. And that's our turbo actuator off. So as you well know, there is an arm here on the turbo. And now we'll have to set this with a pin in this hole here. Slap that in there. There we go. Locked. That's in position now. So we'll go into calibration. Turbocharger actuator. Yes, I've accepted the terms and conditions of use. Now, this has got step-by-step processes here, as you can see. Disassembly, assembly, and go to calibrations failed. Well, let's hope we don't have to go down that road. We'll click accept. And this is to align the actuator properly to calibrate it later. Like I said, we're aligning the turbo actuator, then we're fitting the turbo actuator, and then we're calibrating it to the turbo. So we'll click yes. Now this is the bit, as I say, step by steps on what you need to do. Tilt the cab, disassemble the coolant pipes, all of this I've just done in a time lapse. So you've seen all this. So we'll click continue. It's asked for the conditions to be met, which they are, so we'll click continue again. Now it says aligning, but it isn't aligning. You have to click the box. When you click the box, it will align the actuator. So click the box. Now it's aligning the actuator. And now, from here, you can then fit the motor or actuator to the turbo. As you'll see here, it says the calibration of the electric motor will take place next, so click yes. See, now it's saying carefully install the actuator, so that's what we're going to do. We're not going to go any further now on gel test till we've fitted the actuator. Back on gel test now, we can continue with our alignment, so we'll click accept, and then from here the conditions are met, we'll click OK, and then from here it'll calibrate the VTG actuator to the turbo. Again, we need to click the tick box. This is now aligning the system with the actuator. As you can see, it's quite happy with the span that it's just done. We'll click continue, and now we'll perform a key on, key off, and we'll clear the fault codes, and that should be everything. So all we need to do now is take this engine cover off, or radiator cover if you want to call it that, disarm the tensioner so the auxiliary belt's loose, and we'll get the plugs off the coolant pump and hopefully get the bolts out, and we'll be away. Hopefully this shouldn't take us half an hour. Said that before now. That should do for that. Now we've just got to get to these bolts and the auxiliary belt. So 18mm socket, put this on the tensioner, and then that gives us enough purchase to pull this up and put the screwdriver in here. With the tensioner now held with the screwdriver, this means our auxiliary belt is loose, and we could just slip this off the coolant pump like so. We'll leave this out the way for now, so we'll put it back on after. So we'll do these, we'll slip this off. A ring of bolts to undo on here now. I think there's 5 or 6, can't remember. Let's get them off. I think they're 12. There we go. One. I'll go manual on these last 2. Oh, who put this coolant pump on? It's going to fall off, is it? Oh. So we'll just undo the wiring now. 2 plugs here. One's for the speed sensor, which is this sensor here, funnily enough. And the other one then is for the actual clutch inside the coolant pump. So we'll get these off. There we go, that's them 2. And then this should just prise off, he says. We'll put this in here, seeing as the coolant pump's scrap now. There's a little gap opened up. Hopefully my feet won't get wet. And that's that. So this is our coolant pump. As you can see, it spins independently from the auxiliary drive, and then if it does want to use the coolant pump, locks in here, and then that should, sorry, there, spin as one then. But obviously something's faulty in there for this clutch. So we've got our new coolant pump now and our new coolant pump speed sensor. We'll get this fitted to the coolant pump and then slap the coolant pump back on the engine. We'll get this fitted to the engine now. Hopefully. We'll get a bolt in to hold it so it doesn't disappear. And we'll see how long this lasts. Right, we'll just do the bolts up. And there's one more at the top. Just check them with the ratchet, because I'd be an idiot not to. That's tight. That's tight. That's tight. Right. So we'll get our auxiliary belt back on, and then we can take the tension off the tensioner, and that should be it. I'll just feed this back on here carefully. There we go. Making sure it's under the pulley on the other side. And then it's gone around the tensioner. Right. Let's find my socket. So we'll take the tension off this now. There we go. One water pump. Tidy. Right, we'll get the coolant back in the engine with the old pump.
Thanks. Are you gonna let me know, mate, when you can come back?
Yeah, I'd like to think we could sort something out Monday.
Okay.
Yeah. So let's start our truck now. See how we get on. Yeah, I better top that up. Let's leave it run for a minute. So we're looking good now. Coolant level low light's gone off. Now the coolant's been topped up a bit more. Air pressure's coming up and there's no warnings on the dash. I'd say we're good. We'll go into fault code reading. And from here we can clear down our faults that are in the ECU. And then from here we can take it for a road test and make sure that the coolant pump's working. So I'm down at Andrew's now. He's kindly took out the broken piece of the valve bridge guide, I suppose you'd call this. You can see it's slightly bent. So we've got a new one of them to tap in, a new valve bridge to go on, and then we can build up our rocker shaft. So we'll start now by blowing the bolt holes out for the threads on the rocker shaft and the injector clamp, because the last thing we want is some sort of fake torque setting. Then we'll get the injector in, get the injector tube in, get the rocker shaft on, turn the engine over, set all the valve clearances and the exhaust brake, and then we'll build it all back up and see if it runs. So let's blow these bolt holes out. So we'll put this in here. As you can see, it's cut. It's not directional. Thank you. So we've just put some new seals now on this injector. We'll change the injector sealing ring, even though it looks new, but I know it isn't. Get it off. So we'll put a new injector sealing ring on. We've got a new injector clamp bolt here to replace the old one, as it's a use once only item. So we'll get this fitted in the engine now, get this torque down to 30 Newton meters and 90 degrees, and then we'll get the rocker shaft in. So we'll just run this in here. We'll get the injector pipe in through here just to line it up with the hole in the injector. And then we'll get some tools out and do some torquing. So there's no pitting or corrosion on the end of this. It all looks in good serviceable condition, as they are reusable. So we'll slide that in there. We'll get this started. So we'll set this torque wrench now to 30 Newton meters and then 90 degrees. It's currently set to 50 Newton meters, so we'll just change this. So with our torque wrench set to 30 Newton meters and 90 degrees, now we can torque this injector down. And then set this to 90 degrees. So we'll install our valve bridge now, noting which way the exhaust brake side of this is. There you go, that was that. So now we'll put our rocker shaft assembly on the cylinder head, get that all torqued down, and then we can do the valve clearances. Yeah. Got it?
Yep. Where are we going? Back towards you a bit, isn't it?
Hang on, we're a long way round.
Can't have it yet.
Yep. It should be that way now.
Okay.
Right. So now I've torqued the rocker shaft down to 50 Newton meters. We'll take all the bolts through 90 degrees now in the anti-clockwise pattern. Right, so now we're going to have to set the valve clearances. Oh, I need a bit. Actually, I need a workshop. So we're going to get this cover off the gearbox here. Then, from here, we can see we've got a little pointer. I've got a hole here for a tool. This tool's available on the shop, MX-11 and MX-13. That's in there. And now we're going to turn this over. So I'm just turning this engine over now, and as we can see, 5 and 2 has just shown up in the window. So we'll set either 2 or 5 now upstairs. So we need some valve clearances and procedures now. So we'll jump into vehicle data, and then it's going to be adjustments and tolerances, and then we've got valve adjustments. So the cold intake valve clearance is 0.5 and the cold exhaust valve clearance is 0.7. So we'll use our feeler blades now on the inlet and the exhaust, or should I say exhaust brake valve, because it's actually done on this bit here, not on the actual down here or anything. This has been cut out to suit this. This is for our inlet, 0.7 and 0.5. So we'll adjust these now and then work through 2 and 5, 3 and 4, 1 and 6 again, and basically turn the engine over. So let's get these adjusted. So as you can see now, we're at 1 and 6. We're going to go to our next marker, which might be 3 and 4. So this is 3 and 4 we're stopping at now. Right, let's go and adjust either 3 or 4. So again, how do we know which one we're adjusting? Because we're on 3 or 4. Is it 3 or is it 4? Well, if you can tell by the position of the inlet valves, see this is straight. Let's go across to number 4. See this is down, it's pointing downwards. So inlet is down on number 4, we adjust number 3. Try and get that on next. So we've just got the rocker cover to go back on now. Once this is fitted, we can turn the key and hopefully get some smoke out of it and not some bent valves. So we'll just torque these to 7 Newton meters. If they'll go in. So that's the cover back on the gearbox. Just dig this up. Give it a turn, we'll see what happens. Sweet as a nut. That's what she said.
Well, that truck might be running, but she's still got some teething troubles, as you can see here.
Good morning. Hello.
So, if you see it on fire on the side of the road, I'd say Andrew's had enough of it. Not the best editing in this week's video, unfortunately. Kinda slapped it together, but we do have another 7 days worth of work to crack on with and another video to do. So, as always, drop a like if you thought this video was a good video, subscribe if you want to see more from me in the future, and click up here if you haven't seen last week's episode. And as always, I'll catch you in next week's video from Truck Tech UK.